Aswan, where are you?
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Whose Line Is It Anyway? I'm your host, Drew Carey, and we've got the Subaru Forester GT Edition. I'm trying to make it more interesting, man.
Why?
Our reviews need to be more lifestyle-y.
Lifestyle.
Yeah. So let's just get into it.
Cue dramatic music. Toots, 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 toots.
Subaru Forester. It was launched. Hey!
Hey!
I
Silence and zen!
gotta clap again, don't I?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is the 5th generation Subaru Forester. It was launched here in late 2019, and it initially came in 3 different variants, with the top spec model coming with EyeSight. This GT edition is now the top spec, and it costs around 17,000 more than the previous top spec model.
How much is it?
I think it's about 177,000 and change. Goes against cars like the Honda CR-V and the Mazda CX-5. It's got a 2-liter boxer. All the Foresters have 2-liter boxers. But I'll get Hannah to cut in the specs.
Right.
Because I can't remember offhand.
Transmission?
CVT sends it to all 4 wheels through Subaru's symmetrical all-wheel drive. So, what makes a Forester GT Edition a GT Edition? Well, you've got the badge to start.
Is that?
No. You've got this cool spoiler. You've got a rear bumper garnish. You've got 18-inch alloy wheels and this side skirt as well. And at the front, you also have the same kind of theme going on for the front bumper garnish, like the sort of lip thing.
Ooh.
And if you come inside, you have these GT Edition leather seats. You also get Apple CarPlay, Android Auto.
In the back?
Yeah, the back's pretty good. Same thing, follows the same theme.
Oh, they're nice. White stitching. Dual tone seats. So what has it got on the inside?
Well, there's a list of 50 items here, and I'm going to go through all of them.
You're not going to go through.
Yes, I am.
You've got 4-sensor/4-channel ABS with electronic brake force distribution, active torque vectoring, brake assist, brake override, engine immobilizer, vehicle dynamics control system, emergency stop signal, ISOFIX adapter, child seat anchors, safety pedal system, side door reinforcement beams, SRS front side curtain airbags, and knee. Power folding door mirrors with LED turn signal.
I meant on the inside.
Oh, the only thing that you really need to care about is this new Android Auto / Apple CarPlay head unit. And electric seats are pretty cool. And the EyeSight, of course.
Thank you. That was exhaustive.
Look how much room there is. Get a close-up of how much space I have.
How tall are you?
I think I'm close to 6 feet.
So adequate for
Yeah.
families.
Yeah, I mean, for kids, for old people, for adults, pretty much anyone. You're not going to be cramped in here. You'll be fine. And the driver's seat's set to my height as well. So if you had 4 passengers who are as tall and fat as me, you'd be fine.
What about visibility? If you have a child seat or something like that.
I think you'd be okay. I think it's not too hard to sort of turn around in the cabin, check on your kid. You'd be fine.
And it's got ISOFIX anchors.
Yeah, I mentioned that, if you were paying attention. One of the things we like about the Forester is the boot space and the powered rear tailgate. As you can see, the Forester is a bit boxier than other SUVs, and that helps a bit with retaining boot space, because what you get normally is a little bit of a taper with most SUVs on the market. But because this has sort of extended and it sort of kept its shape, it allows it to have a little more, boot space.
Power boot.
Yes. You can see it's very big.
It's longer than most.
Yeah, it is. Why are you sitting in the back seat?
Because I want to look at you.
Yeah,
and
I know.
move the car.
Ah, okay, fine. I wish I had Hannah with me, but you're okay. You're okay. Like I said, this is a pretty nice car to drive around. You know, it's not. It's a bit of a left field option. Like you don't really consider it as your first option when you look at the segment, but then you remember that it's there, and you really should give it a test drive and see if you enjoy it, because it's comfortable, like most SUVs, and it drives pretty well. And the all-wheel drive is an interesting point because, as you know, a lot of manufacturers have gone away from that. Like even the top spec CR-Vs are front-wheel drive. Mazda offers front-wheel drive for most of their variants, but they maintain symmetrical all-wheel drive for the Forester, which is admirable in this day and age. You can't deny it does give you a bit more stability in the wet, in the rain. You know, you feel a bit more sure-footed when you're driving this. Just driving around, no issues. It's got manual mode, but you don't really need to use it. The CVT is pretty smart. It keeps your revs low, keeps the fuel consumption kind of okay. As you can see right now, it's got about 11.5 liters per 100 km average. I have been stuck in like traffic jams lately, and with the rain and stuff, it does have a pretty big impact on your fuel consumption. But if you do drive it reasonably well on a combined cycle, like say a bit of urban, a bit of highway, Subaru claims it can get 7.8 liters per 100 km, which is pretty decent for an SUV. At times when I'm cruising down the highway, like right now, you can see it's under 10. Like if I just maintain speed, it's okay. It's about 6 or 7.
What about ergonomics? How does everything feel? How does the switchgear feel?
It feels okay. It's solid. There's no sort of rattle to it. There's no free play. Steering wheel as well feels very nice in the palms of your hands and stuff.
It's got paddle shifters, right?
It does have paddle shifters, yes. But it only makes a difference if you're in manual mode, or it just keeps overriding your drive.
Does it match up against the Mazda CX-5 in terms of driving?
I would say in certain respects it feels better than the CX-5.
Does it feel more planted because of the all-wheel drive?
It's got a lower center of gravity of the engine and everything. I would say that the CX-5 does have a slight edge in certain situations, but it does so at the expense of ride quality. So with the Forester, it's comfortable. It's as comfortable as you'd expect from an SUV.
It's definitely as comfortable as a CR-V.
Yeah, it's definitely it's as comfortable as a CR-V. Maybe very slightly stiffer, but not as stiff as say a CX-5. And that compromise is good. It's a good sort of middle ground between the two.
Okay, what about power?
I wouldn't say it's sprightly or quick. I mean, it gets off the line fine. It accelerates up to highway speeds. Overtaking isn't too difficult, but it is still a 2-liter engine trying to power a fairly large car. So you are going to feel some strain. Like if I put my foot down now, it goes and goes, but it takes a while. Yeah, that's like 100.
Feels decent.
Yeah. With most cars and the way gearing works, especially with CVT, as much as I don't like CVT transmissions, it does help with like the low speed stuff and getting up to rolling speeds quickly.
So the Subaru X Mode,
Yeah.
I mean, it makes the car really, really competent, and unlike most other modern SUVs, this thing can really go out into the rough and tough, correct?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the features I like about this car, but as you can see today, we don't have an off-road track to try it on. We've done it before, and I loved using it. You know, running road tires, running through the mud. It's great. But this is also a reflection of what most SUV owners these days are going to face. You're almost never going to use it, even though it's such a cool feature and it's very well thought out, it's very well engineered. You're probably never going to use it, and that's kind of sad. But it's the reality of the situation that we're in.
The X Mode it's a no-brainer.
Yes.
Like
correct.
anybody can get into this car,
Yeah.
get in the right mode, and the car will handle it for you.
Correct. So you have more complex systems on things like Land Rovers, as you see. But if you've actually taken a look at these systems, there's like 7 different modes you can choose from. And honestly, again, how often are you going to use it? This thing is just snow, dirt, or deep snow, mud, or normal. You don't really need to think about what you're doing. It's just what's ahead of you, select the mode and go. Another thing we keep mentioning is the EyeSight. The system works slightly differently from what you see on some other models with active safety. It's a stereoscopic system, so you've got 2 cameras, and it functions somewhat like your eyes would in terms of how you perceive distance, where the sort of mild differences between what your right and left eye see lets you gauge distance. That being said, if you are in very heavy rain or the camera's obstructed for some reason, the system will warn you that it's not operating. But in most situations that we've experienced, it does work fine. At times it can be slightly intrusive, but you can turn it off if you want to. And at the same time, if you had a loved one driving a car, or if you yourself were a little bit absent-minded, you would want it to be more intrusive than less intrusive. I'm not going to pretend that I love this car 100%, because there are still things that I find slightly difficult to deal with. Like, for example, visibility in this car forward and through the sides when you're moving around, it's not bad. It's pretty good. The problem comes when you're trying to park or maneuver around tight spaces, because it's a very long bonnet and a long dashboard, so at times it can be hard to gauge exactly where the front is, and you can't really see where the side is because of how high the sides are. Over time you get used to it, and it does help that it has that sort of top-down view for the reverse camera, in addition to the other cameras that lets you position the car better. But at the same time, it can be a bit claustrophobic when you first are trying to get used to it. The other thing that I wish was slightly better was the cluster. The cluster, apart from the center, which is a very sharp, high-definition screen, I wish it was slightly more complex or better designed, because it's quite a flat, simple motif behind. And perhaps the last thing that I wish was slightly different was the engine note. It's not that I don't like boxer engines. In fact, I would love to own a version 8 STI at one point in my life. But these modern direct injection boxer engines, they don't sound great when you're stressing them out. And this even applies to stuff like the BRZ, where it can sound a little bit like a washing machine. But yeah, you might laugh, but really after a while it does sound like that. But you get, if you're using, or rather paired with the CVT that it has in this car, you don't always hear the engine. It does keep the revs quite low when you're moving around. So it's not really a problem that persists or that would be an issue. That's our review of the Forester GT Edition. You know, if you like this kind of review, leave a note in the comments. Yeah. See you next time.
Drive safe.